Not long ago, racketeering was an all-too-common part of life in our country. In certain circles, these criminals, extortionists, and thugs were even respected, feared not just for their brutality, but for the strange authority they held. Everyone suffered, from small-time vendors to factory directors, but the ones hit hardest were the truckers. Alone on the highways, far from help, they often became easy prey, disappearing along with their cargo, never to be seen again. There was no safety net. Only fellow drivers had their backs. Now and then, truckers would band together and fight back, mounting a rare, organized stand against the criminals. But most of the time, they had little choice but to hand over their hard-earned money, accepting the losses as part of the job. It's in this world that our story begins with a young man named Maxim. Just starting out, full of hope, he made a bold decision. He sold the house he'd inherited from his grandfather, scraped together every last bit he could, and bought himself a nearly new Kamaz truck. The day he drove it home, pride swelling in his chest, Max felt unstoppable. Now we're set, he told himself. He already had a few jobs lined up. Everything seemed simple then. Just work hard, take the orders, and the money would follow. At least, that's how it looked from the driver's seat, before the roads taught him otherwise. But in reality, it turned out to be not so simple. Maxim went on his first voyage to his hometown. He had to travel a little more than 1,000 kilometers to deliver a shipment of alcohol. The owner of the cargo gave an advance and said that if everything went well, he would take it on a permanent basis. At first, everything went well. Max turned off the main road, deciding to take a bypass route that went straight through the forest. The road here was relatively good, and few people knew about it. This is what the driver was counting on, but as it turned out later, he was very mistaken. It all started when Max saw a black Jeep quickly approaching in the rearview mirror. Having caught up with him, the Jeep began to actively blink its headlights and honk. Everything inside the guy broke down. Of course, he had heard a lot about the robberies that happen on the highways, but how were they able to figure it out on an almost deserted forest road? Meanwhile, the Jeep began to match the speed of the truck, and from its open window, the shaved head of a typical bandit appeared, waving his hand and shouting for Maxim to stop. Max decided to take a risk. If he stopped here, then in the best case, they would simply take everything they wanted from him, and in the worst case, he would remain here, somewhere in a snowdrift, to be devoured by hungry wolves and lynxes. The truck driver firmly pressed the gas pedal. It was clear that the bandits were also not going to give up so quickly. The Jeep accelerated sharply, catching up with the fugitive. Max began to swerve along the deserted road, not allowing himself to be passed. If only I could make it to the highway, if only I could make it in time, he thought. There, they would no longer be able to pursue him so freely, and perhaps he would be able to break away. Soon, the guy saw the same bald man leaning out the window of the Jeep, holding a shotgun. A shot immediately followed, shattering his mirror and scratching the door. Max instinctively ducked, turning the steering wheel. The Kamaz veered off the road, getting one wheel stuck in deep snow, and by inertia, it slid a few more meters, moving further off the road, and finally stopped. The same Jeep immediately halted, and 4 strong men jumped out of it. The one with the gun opened the door and dragged Max out into the street, pointing the barrel at him. "Well, you nit, did you think you could run away from us?" the main bandit shouted, hitting Max in the stomach with the butt of his gun. The guy fell in pain, trying to catch his breath after such a blow. "What are you carrying?" came the next question, accompanied by a poke in the chest from the barrel. "Alcohol," Max answered. "Oh, that's good. This is what we love," said the robber, taking the keys to the truck. "No need, guys, no need." Max began to plead with the robbers as he rose to his feet. "It's your own fault," the bald man replied indifferently, placing the shotgun on his shoulder. "You behaved wrongly. You refused to good people. Now you have to answer." He looked at Maxim angrily again, as if wondering whether to hit him once more or to regret it. "What kind of people are you?" Maxim suddenly shouted, moving a little to the side and watching as the bandits unloaded boxes of vodka, putting them into their Jeep. "Yes, you are simply inhuman." Max was close to hysterics. Before his eyes, these looters were destroying everything: his dream, his hopes, and his future. "Stop whining," said the bald man, moving toward him. He swung the butt of his gun to hit the driver, but Max dodged and struck the bandit with all his might, causing him to collapse in the snow. His friends, seeing this, rushed toward Max, taking out brass knuckles and knives as they went. This is the end, the guy thought, holding his hands up, ready to face his opponents. He understood perfectly well that this would be his last fight. The hefty bandit was already 2 steps away from him, having raised his fist with brass knuckles to bring it down on Max's head when, at that moment, some unknown force hit him, knocking him down and throwing him into the snow. Maxim was taken aback by what he saw. A pack of wolves burst out of the forest, rushing at the robbers and starting to tear them apart. Max watched in numbness as those who had just wanted to kill him were now lying around, rolling on the ground and screaming in agony. The huge leader tore the big man's arms right beneath Max's feet, and he screamed desperately, trying to prevent the forest predator from reaching his throat. Suddenly, Maxim understood everything. He recognized this great leader of the wolves. Now he had become a massive beast of prey, terrifying anyone who got in his way. He remembered how, during the summer he spent with his grandfather, they had found the wolf barely alive and exhausted. It took him a long time to get used to people. Max, still a child at the time, had fed and cared for the wolf cub, whom he named Windbreaker. As the wolf cub grew stronger, he became a true friend to Max and his grandfather. Realizing that people had saved his life, he tried every moment to repay them with kindness for their kindness. And now, by some miracle, Burilam had heard and remembered the voice of the man who once saved him, bringing his pack to deal with the offenders once and for all. "Windfall, stop. No need," Max shouted. The wolf raised his bloody muzzle, looking at Max, and wagged his tail welcomingly. The bandit lying beneath him looked at Max in surprise, then at the wolf, and shouted, "Take them away. Take it away. Please, I beg you. If you want our car, take it. Do you want us to give you all the money?" Stormbreaker glanced at his victim, and his fangs showed again, indicating that he was ready to attack once more. The robber howled, smearing tears across his face with his bloody hands. "Sorry. Forgive us," he pleaded. "Yes, we'll do whatever you want. Just forgive me." Max dropped to his knees and called out softly. The wolf, Windfall, came without hesitation, pressing his forehead against Max's face. "Volchera," Max whispered, his voice trembling as he wrapped his arms around the wolf. "You saved me today. You saved my whole life." The other wolves stood alert, watching the scene unfold, their eyes fixed on the humans. Max turned sharply to the bandits. "Put the boxes back." His voice left no room for argument. Reluctantly, the men stood and began hauling the stolen goods back into the truck. "And drop your weapons, right here," the driver barked, still clutching Burilam, the massive wolf who had helped turn the tide. Wounded and exhausted, the bandits complied, placing their weapons on the ground. "Now get lost," Max said, his tone cool and steady as he stood beside his loyal companion. The robbers didn't argue. They scrambled into their car and sped off, swallowed by the dust of the road. The rest of the drive to the drop-off point was quiet, uneventful, but Max couldn't stop thinking about wolves and humans, about loyalty and memory. And as the road stretched out before him, he wondered who truly deserved to be called human. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.